Thank you for being here this morning. We are working again, like I said, this is the last class on samskaras this week. So samskaras, if you don't know this word, are is the name we give to the what they call latent impressions, or what we might call energetic residue, or what we might call habitual patterns of the mind. We also have habitual patterns of the body, and even habitual patterns of the emotions. We sort of have this idea that each moment is unique and special, and that is true. But if we were able to get a little bit of distance to observe our lives from a sort of external point of view or a detached point of view, we would notice that even though each moment and each situation is unique, we often respond similarly to similar situations over and over and over again. And the more we talked a little bit a couple weeks ago about karma and how each action, word, and thought that we have or that we engage with is a seed. And each one of those seeds creates something, either a plant or a tree or a bush or fruits or flowers or something. It manifests into whatever it is, the essence of what's inside it. And so in some ways, these samskaras are like tiny little seeds that we plant over and over and over again. Good morning to my kitty, that's Nessie. And some seeds we plant are like really big actions, and they have really big noticeable consequences. Samskaras seem to me to be more like tiny seeds that only make a little tiny crop, but we've planted so many of them so frequently that the amount of space in our garden of our life or whatever is actually taken up quite a lot by the fruits of these tiny seeds. So something that we need, two things that we need to be aware of these patterns is we need to have a deep sense of vigilant awareness. We call this the sakshi. This is the witnessing consciousness or the observation consciousness. And it does have within it sort of that little bit of distance where we pull out of our lives and look at it from the outside rather than trying to understand and interpret it from within that experience. So that little bit of distance and observation is helpful. And then secondly, we have to, once we have a good idea of what's really going on, is to bring intention into these actions. So maybe instead of planting a whole lot of seeds that bring us further away from our goal, we begin to plant seeds frequently and regularly that take us more toward that sense of wholeness, our sense of unity with all things, and our connectedness, or that state of yoga. So what we're going to do today is try to break up some of these patterns in our lives, just kind of hit the reset button, if you will. We'll do a lot of kind of shaking out of the body and kind of just breaking up energy and kind of stirring up some aliveness in order for us to maybe reset our patterns or to break up the patterns enough that we are able to pull back a little bit and see with that level of awareness what it is that we're working with. So it's a typical pattern of ours to first come into a comfortable seat to begin our class, and we'll do that today. So if you want to find yourself kind of coming into a more intentionally established seat, and we're going to bring in those two elements, that awareness, that observation, and also that intention. So first, just kind of watch the body settling into your seat. And then with that awareness, keeping that awareness very strong and clear, let's bring some intention into imagining the center of our spine as sort of an open channel and beginning to align that so that it's really clear and open, reducing hindrances and narrow places in that openness. You might feel the heart open or the crown of the head lift. We might feel the tailbone kind of settling downward, kind of just gently adjusting the tilt of the pelvis to create a longer, more open channel through that center line of our spine. So we brought some intention into our posture. Let's also bring in that awareness and just begin to watch the cycle of the breath flowing. Perceive and feel the heart beating and the cycle, that repeated cycle of squeeze and release. And then holding both of those observations in your awareness, also begin to kind of feel the world moving around you. You might hear some traffic or the wind blowing outside or whatever might be happening outside of the body. We read in the 4th chapter of the Yoga Sutras that the purpose of our consciousness is beyond just kind of moving around in the world. The purpose of our consciousness is to observe with clarity and precision both what's happening internally inside of us and also what's happening externally. That we have both that sense of wholeness, that state of yoga, as well as our individual nature kind of moving and acting within the world. Being able to see both of those perspectives simultaneously is the purpose of our consciousness. And in order to get to that place, we have to practice regularly, planting many, many seeds of awareness and intention. So let's move into a pattern that we know very well. Let's find cat and cow stretches in the body. As you inhale, opening your heart forward, lifting your chin. As you exhale, chin to chest, back body opens. And just kind of get into a regular flow here. Start to sync up movement with breath in a very precise way, bringing some of that attention and intention. And this is kind of like life. We have a way of doing things. Maybe we have the same routine every morning or every evening. Maybe we have particular habits that are so common and regular to us that we barely have to think about what it is we're doing. And this is the case for this movement. We do this a lot in any kind of yoga practice. So now let's break it up a little bit. Next time you come chin to chest, just pause and continue to let your breath flow. So we've already kind of stopped the pattern. Now let's introduce a new pattern and just watch how challenging this is for the body. Take a big inhale here in the back body, and as you exhale, come forward and lift your chin. So we're inhaling in cat and exhaling in cow. Now if we don't keep ourselves paying quite a lot of attention to what it is that we're doing, we find that we slip right back into the original pattern rather than this newly introduced pattern. It's especially hard for me while I'm talking and doing it. My breath gets all confused and I often slip right back into that pattern. Next time you exhale and come into that big open heart, pause there and let your breath flow. So we're again breaking up that pattern, taking a pause, taking a moment of assessment. And then just neutralize your spine, come back to that intentional seat and watch your breath come back to its natural flow. Letting go of any monitoring or change to the breath. And we'll again take another flow that we do often in yoga practice, bringing your hands down to the sides of your mat. On your inhales, sweep the hands up, maybe the fingertips or palms touch. On your exhales, come back down to the floor. Try to reach out with your fingertips so we're still bringing awareness and intention. Like how far out can you touch? Imagine you're trying to stretch a bubble away from your body by pressing outward. Inhaling to rise, exhaling to descend. And then the next time your hands reach up above your head, pause there and just let a few breath cycles move through your body. So we're breaking up that pattern. And I feel like this is even more difficult than our last reintroduction of a pattern. On this one, we're gonna inhale as the hands come down and exhale as we rise. So again, keep yourself at that level of attention where you feel your arms intentionally stretching out and you're monitoring the pairing of your breath with this movement. And it feels very counterintuitive because we're so used to doing it a particular way. Take a few more rounds, see if you can get into a pattern with it. There's really no escaping these patterns in our lives and in our minds and in our behavior. So the best we can do is bring intention and awareness to it and introduce patterns intentionally rather than letting ourselves be on autopilot. Next time your hands come up again, take a little pause. A few breaths passing through the body, breaking up that cycle again. Then on an exhale, let's lower just the left hand and then lean to the left with the right hand. Open up your heart a little bit, maybe find a little bit of forward and back motion. Even as your right arm reaches up and to the left, kind of find a little cat-cow. Notice where there might be new sensations. Take Take a little pause for a breath cycle or two, just leaning over, and then inhale, bring both arms back up and above you. Let a few breaths pass, align your spine. And then exhale the right arm down, and let's find that same side bending motion. So first just kind of stretching and opening that left side body, and then finding some open and closed heart movements, cat-cow as we lean to the right. Take a pause for a few breath cycles, just leaning over, opening that left side body. And again, inhale to bring both arms back up and above, align your spine, take a breath cycle or two, kind of readjust back to that really open, intentional, tall spine. And then on your next exhale, bring your hands down behind your body, lean back into your hands, lift your heart. Then maybe lean a little deeper into the hands to free your legs from their cross-legged position. And we'll just bring the feet in front of the body, maybe about hip distance or so apart, knees are bent, arms are still behind the body. We're just gonna lift and lower the sacrum off the floor, kind of finding a reverse table. So you can sync this up with your breath if you like, or you can just simply lift and lower. Now how high you're coming away from the mat is kind of up to you and your body. Maybe we just lift a little bit, maybe we lift a lot, maybe we even try to lift the pelvis above the level of the shoulders. So just kind of notice for you where you are with this. Take about 3 more lifts. And then we'll rest the sitting bones on the mat again, just kind of pausing in our motion. Pausing our motion, finding stillness for a moment. Kind of settle into a sense of alignment. Maybe we flatten the back a little bit for a neutral spine. And then we can maybe do this by lifting the pelvis a little bit off the floor, so not full table, but just lifting. And you can also leave it on the mat if you like. And let's find some cat and cow motions in this reverse table. So in one position, we're gonna have the back behind the body, chin to chest, kind of pointing the tailbone upward. And then reversing that direction, back of the head coming back, tailbone points back, ribs lift. So just kind of find this cat and cow. Again, something we normally do, but it's really awkward in this reverse table. It's really different than the way we normally do things. So maybe take another few rounds of breath, just kind of feeling the challenge of this unfamiliar shape, the strength that's required in your arms and shoulders. And then come back down again to the mat. And let's take a couple of twisting motions here. So just allowing the knees to fall side to side. This movement of the knees is sort of like scanning for what's possible. Kind of being able to move back and forth in a habitual pattern. This is something we can do without thinking again. Next time your knees come to one side, let both knees fall to that side. You can start on either side. Turn your body, find a little deer twist. We can stay upright and maybe find stillness or movement. We can also lower down to the floor, either on forearms or on the belly. But once you find your shape, whether you're upright or low down, see how much movement might be available to you. See how you might adjust the posture to shift the shoulders, or the gaze, or the spine. Kind of break up the way we normally do this by staying alert, staying in a constant state of motion, which means we're having to think about how to move the body. So this helps us to stay in that state of presence, which is really, in some ways, another way of describing that state of union or state of yoga. Take another 2 breaths, experimenting in your deer twist on this side. Then intentionally come back into that center place, hands behind the body, feet on the floor. Maybe just take a little bit of cat and cow, either with the sacrum lowered or lifted. Neutralize your spine again and find that side to side motion in the knees. We'll find our deer twist on the opposite side now, so when your knees fall in that direction, start to walk your body around. And again, make a choice about how high or low you'd like to be from the floor, and continuously find some kind of movement. If you're lowered all the way down to the floor, it might be a little bit more limited how you can move, but still find some motion. Spine, shoulders, hips, maybe even just fingers and toes. If you're high enough off the floor, you might shift your gaze from side to side, bringing the neck and the gaze into the equation. When we are constantly vigilant, when we connect deeply to that witnessing consciousness, we're able to get that distance we need to see the patterns and then assess how we would like to continue or change or transform or alter those patterns. Just another breath or two, finding your movement. And then untwisting your body, coming back into that reverse table prep pose. Maybe we lift, maybe we leave the sacrum on the floor, but find a little, again, a bit of that cat-cow motion, neutralizing the spine and letting the sitting bones come back down. We'll swing the legs behind the body so that we can come into our more traditional tabletop now. So once we're here in this familiar shape, let's do the same things we did in reverse and just notice how much easier they are. If we cat and cow here, we barely have to think about it. Our breath might even automatically sync up without much thought on our part. We're used to this. It doesn't require as much thought to how to balance your weight or anything else. This is much more like the samskaras that we have grown accustomed to. We barely notice these patterns. Now, next time you come into that cat pose, again, take a pause, let a few breaths pass through the body in and out, holding this shape, feeling how the inhale changes the back body, how the exhale naturally kind of pulls the navel a little closer in towards the spine. Then on your next exhale, drop your belly, lift your hips and chin. Inhale into cat. And see if you just have to pay a little bit more attention. Notice where your attention goes. Two more breath cycles. Then neutralize your spine again. Let's start to find a little bit more balance and see if we can find some new ways to move the body from this familiar tabletop shape. So let's inhale the right leg back and behind us, kind of rotate your foot around on your ankle, maybe bend and straighten your knee, kind of pulling your heel toward and then away from your sitting bone. And then press the right toes into the floor and press into the hands to stretch out that calf muscle. We might even lift the left knee a little off the mat. Feel that opening. Then let that knee come back down. Allow your right foot to be lifted off the mat. And if you feel steady, also raise the left arm. So neutralize your spine, kind of tuck in a little bit through the navel, engaging our essence, which is that core awareness. And let a few breaths pass through, just kind of balancing statically here. On an exhale, pull the elbow and knee under the body, arch through the spine, hold here for a few cycles of breath. See how smooth you can make your breath. Sometimes we have to hold a new position and still allow the other cycles of our lives, like our breath and our heartbeat, to continue. On an inhale, reach long. On your exhale, coil under. Let's take 3 of these crunches. On the third one, pause. Inhale here, then exhale and push out. 3 of those. Let's bring the left hand back down to the mat, right toes to the mat. Drop the right heel in towards the center, and let's give that right arm a break by lifting it up and away from the mat. So the heart is rolled open to this right side. Because we were holding in such a static pose, let's kind of work out that right shoulder a little bit. Feel the heat there from holding your body. Just see how far, just like we did in our other poses, like you're pushing something away from you. See how much space you can make between your fingertips and your heart. Then let's bring the whole body back into that traditional tabletop shape that we know so well. Balancing on the left hand one more time. Let's bring the right arm under the body and shift your heart to the left. Press into your left hand to push the shoulder back. And just take a few cycles of breath. Maybe we can find a tiny bit of movement here in the hips or the toes. And again, arrive back in that traditional table. Let's start to find those same movements on the other side. So we notice too that patterns in our lives show up in a lot of different places, or it's the same pattern from the other side. So let's try that. Lifting the left leg behind you, kind of rotate your foot around on the ankle. Then press the toes away from your hip and then toward your hip, kind of the heel coming in, bending and straightening that knee. And then tucking those left toes under, press into the hands to stretch out the back of that leg. Maybe the right knee lifts a little bit, maybe not. Then finally, balancing on both hands and the right knee, lift the left leg back behind you again. And if you feel steady, reach the right arm in front of you. Neutralize the spine, maybe pull the navel in a little bit, and then extend from left foot to right hand. Let a few breaths pass. On an exhale, coil under the body, right elbow and left knee, hold here. Feel the steadiness of that breaking up of a pattern, even as the heart continues to beat, the breath continues to flow. Then on an exhale, extend long. On an inhale, coil under. Exhale, stretch long. Inhale, coil under. Take one more like that. Exhale, stretch long. Inhale, coil under. Pause here. Exhale here. Inhale, stretch out. Exhale, coil. Two more like that. Bringing both hands back down to the mat, reach the left leg behind you. Bring the left toes to the mat and the heel drops to the center. Let's give a little break to that left arm and roll it open, heart opening up to the left. Stretch out and find some motion in that left shoulder. Eventually coming back to our all fours shape. Take just a moment here to tuck the toes under and start to lift and lower the knees a few times. Moving from down dog to table a few times. Creating a pattern. And then staying in downward facing dog. Start to fine tune this position. So chin coming into the chest. Arms lengthening, legs lengthening. Active through that essence or core, that Sakshi witness we might find in that core belly area. Let's lift the right leg again. So we're balancing 3 limbs here. Maybe we rotate that ankle again. And then with the right leg lifted, let's see if we can bend into the left knee and touch the left knee down to the mat. Once you're here, take a breath or so. Then see if you can press back up. All this while, the right leg lifted. On an exhale, let's try to touch down again. Then press up. Let's try one more. Exhale, touch down. Inhale, lift back up. Exhale again, step the right foot forward between your hands. High lunge here with that back knee lifted. Inhale and lift your torso. Maybe we're pressing into the thigh or reaching upward. Let's see here if we can take a few dips here. So on an exhale, start to bend into that back knee. Maybe we don't touch all the way down. Maybe we just take a little dip. Maybe we touch all the way down. 3 of those. On that next exhale, bring both hands inside the right foot, wiggle, walk it out wider, and drop that left knee behind you. From here, we have sort of a dragon shape. Start to find some movement in your hips, maybe in the knee and ankle on the right side. Maybe tuck the left toes under and then release them. Kind of find the lifting and lowering of the back knee. Maybe we drop one elbow and then the other, kind of twisting. Find some novel motion here. We know this pose, but if we bring awareness to it, we have options within. Take one more breath of this movement and then settle into a familiar dragon pose. So your preferred way of taking this shape, maybe you stay on hands, maybe you drop to elbows or forearms, maybe use props here. But find some stillness. By pausing that pattern of constant motion, we have the opportunity to assess, to tap into that awareness. And then once we're aware, we have the opportunity to bring that attention or intention into how we take this shape. We'll stay for another 3 breaths. If you'd like to make any adjustment, take that adjustment and then settle in for 3 breaths. Beautiful. Start to tuck your left toes nice and slow in whatever fashion feels good to you. Bring your left or right foot back towards your left. Find downward facing dog. Take 2 more inhales. And on that second exhale, let your knees come down to table. Take a big inhale to cat arch through the spine. And then exhale, drop into child's pose. And again, we have this opportunity for stillness. While you are paused here, just observing, let me share with you from Yoga Sutra. This is book 4. Book 4, Sutra 18 says that patterns of consciousness are always known by pure awareness. So this is that sakshi, that witnessing consciousness. And then later in 423 it says, or 422 it says, once consciousness is stilled, this awareness comes to resemble that unchanging awareness and can reflect itself being perceived. And then in 23 it says, then consciousness can be colored by both awareness and the phenomenal world, thereby fulfilling its purposes. So that's what we're trying to do, bring intention up to these patterns, attention to the patterns so we're aware of them, and then to be able to see within and around us. That's what we're practicing towards. So let's come back up into table. Let's tuck the toes, and again, maybe lift and lower a few times from table to downward facing dog. Eventually finding a pause in down dog, a familiar pose. Lengthen your arms and legs, draw the navel in, let the head and neck relax and become heavy. And let's lift the left leg, maybe we roll that ankle again a few times. And with the left leg remaining lifted, let's challenge ourselves again. We're gonna have to engage that essence of who we are, that witnessing consciousness. On an exhale, start to bend into the right knee, maybe we touch it down to the mat. Then press back up. Let's try to do this twice more. Lowering on an exhale when the core is engaged. Pressing back up on an exhale. One more. Excellent. Then from here, let's step that left foot forward between the hands again. High lunge. And from this place, start to lift the torso. Again, we might press against the thigh or raise the hands. You can also interlace behind your back or support at your low back. But just feel this steadiness. And we'll again try to do that little knee drop here. So on an exhale, drop the right knee maybe to the ground, maybe just a tiny bit. 2 more like that. Then this time as you exhale, hands come inside that left foot. Drop the right knee behind you. Widen the left foot out a little bit and begin to find some constant motion. Now what moves and how it moves is up to you. Just stay really aware. Try to get to all parts of the body. Try to find the limitation of your movement by getting as far out as you can, twisting, untwisting, wiggling, catting, cowing. All kinds of motion available in the neck and head and hands, even the face. Two more breaths of this movement, and then we'll settle into a familiar and stable dragon pose of your choice. Maybe staying on hands, maybe lowering, maybe using props, maybe not. And notice how as we become still, as we let go of the constant motion of life or of the mind or of the heart, as we escape or pause these patterns, we have this deeper sense of awareness. Feel how much more aware you are of sensation in the body or the mind. Then keeping that same level of awareness, even as the body starts to find motion again, tuck the right toes slowly and mindfully. Let's work our way back into downward facing dog. Take about 3 breaths here, lengthening. On that last exhale, drop into table again, both knees coming down. Inhale into the back body, arching like a cat. Exhale, find your child's pose again. So what we learned here in the sutras is that it's only when we tap into that pure awareness, that unchanging ultimate witness, that we're able to know these samskaras, these patterns of consciousness. And we also know that we have to take time to become still, so that we have these moments of awareness and reflection. And the more we practice that, the more our consciousness becomes like that unchanging witness. And then we can fulfill our ultimate purpose, which is to be both aware of awareness itself and aware of the movements of the world, both of which have been described as whirlpool or swirling motions. So let's rise back into our tabletop shape. Let's gently tuck the toes and press up again to downward facing dog. Let's step the left foot forward between the hands and dropping the right heel towards the center of the mat. Let's walk both hands inside that left foot. So we're now facing the right long edge of the mat. Extend the right leg long, maybe lift and lower through that hip by bending and straightening the left knee. Hands can support you on the floor or be lifted as you choose. Then pause and just sit in this pose for a moment. Maybe we use a little support underneath the body. Maybe hands support us. Maybe hands find motion or a new novel stretch within this shape. Then begin to walk hands toward the center of that right edge of the mat. Straighten both legs. Adjust the feet so you can shift hips from side to side. Feel the inner thigh on each side stretching. Kind of find a pattern here. Movement, constant motion. And keeping the knees soft, straighten both legs. Inhale and lengthen your spine. Exhale and fold, let go. So we have this sort of wide stance that encompasses both our ideas about the past, patterns we've experienced over and over, and also our dreaming into the future, where we kind of know what to expect, or we think we can expect certain things. But the head and the heart are passive here. And so we're looking what ends up being behind us. We can only really rely on what we've already experienced, but that doesn't make room for creating something new. So let's enliven our head and our heart by coming into a flat back. Hands might rest on the floor to support you. They can also come to hips or support you on your legs. Maybe you're using blocks here. But find an alert mind and an engaged heart. Kind of engage that core essence, that witness within you. Notice that the gaze has shifted at least into the present, if not slightly into the future. Exhale again. Find passive head and neck. Hands can be anywhere that feels comfortable and supportive. And again, notice that we're looking behind us. When we disengage our awareness and our intellect, when we disengage from observing the mind and observing the heart, they just kind of are passive. They're not creative. They're just reliving the same patterns of the past. Inhale and engage again. Find that flat back. Notice how the gaze has shifted. Our direction of focus is now in a different place. And from here, let's walk with this awareness, with this engagement. Let's walk over to the right foot, dropping the left knee behind you. And again, just kind of finding some movement here. Hips are shifting. Then bring both hands inside that right foot and the left leg extending long. So let's lift and lower again through the hip. Let's just find a little motion or a little constant movement. Notice our alertness level stays pretty high because we have to constantly be engaging with our balance. Then pause in Skandasana here. Hands again can support you. Something can support underneath your hips, or you can find some movement and stretch in the body. And then let's walk back into the center for just a moment, kind of lifting and lowering the hips by bending and straightening the knees. Maybe we're doing this side to side, maybe we're doing both at the same time. And then walking hands back towards the top of the mat, stepping the right foot to meet the left. Find a little passive fold here. On an inhale, find your flat back. We're going to take one more really challenging move before we find our way to more stillness. So engage with that core center. Notice where the gaze is. Find an engaged heart, an engaged mind. Reach your hands in line with your torso, and then start to slowly bend at the knees. Let's take a moment here in chair pose, just for about 3 breaths. This is 100% engagement. Then bring your hands down to support you as you bend deeper into the pose. Let your sitting bones come down to the floor. Stretch out your legs. And just kind of lean back into the hands for a moment. Take a pause. Disengaging, kind of being passive in the body. Just taking a moment maybe to close the eyes and feel the echo of these small decisions. Let's bend at the knees, soles of the feet on the floor, and come all the way down to your back. Now we have cat-cowed in a very traditional seated position. We have cat-cowed in reverse table, which was really awkward and challenging. We have cat-cowed in regular tabletop, which is a little bit more, again, easier for us to do. We know that position. We're going to try to isolate some of those movements of cat and cow into different parts of the body. So hands and arms can be anywhere. Take a moment to just kind of shake out or break up any tension, kind of wiggle out the fingers and the face, the head and the neck, and then let your body sink into the floor. Totally passive. Let's isolate a cow movement here into just the heart center. So leave the sacrum exactly as it is and just kind of squeeze the shoulder blades together a little bit and lift just the heart. Everything else stays static. Relax back into that neutral position. Let's try to cat just the shoulders. So maybe the shoulders themselves kind of lift up and away from the floor as if the tip of your shoulders or the corner of your shoulders was reaching for your heart. Feel that motion, then pause, relax again, find passivity. Let's try just the hips here. So without moving any of the rest of the body, point the tailbone up towards the ceiling. Feel the mid-back or the top of the sacrum press into the floor. Everything else soft and passive. Release back to neutral, take a breath or so, just relaxed into the floor. Then shift the tailbone down, feel the top of the pelvis kind of reaching up, feel the mid-back slide away from the floor a little bit. Relax back into a passive motion. See if you can keep this sort of neutral flat back as you take an inhale into your belly and then exhale. Keep that neutral flat back as you lift the sacrum away from the floor, pressing into the feet. So just have almost like a plane from the knees to the shoulders. Take 2 more breaths here. On that second exhale, release your sacrum back to the mat. See if you can maintain that flat back the whole way down. So again, a level of awareness and intention. Once you're down, just relax, kind of find that passive alignment. Then let's find both the hips and the shoulders or the heart area here, finding a cow shape. So we're lifting the heart, shoulder blades might squeeze together. Tailbone is starting to point down. We can already feel sort of that arch in the front body. Then press into the feet and lift. Feel how close your heart is to your chin. Feel the tailbone pointing down, sort of the round shape at the front and back of the body. Front body reaching up and expanding, back body sort of squeezing together. 2 more breaths like this. Again, second exhale. See if you can maintain this curved shape as you come down. So the heart ends up still lifted and the top of the sacrum still lifted. Then relax into your neutral spine. Take a breath or 2, maybe even 3 in this neutral passive place. And let's find that cat shape both in the shoulders and in the pelvis. So shoulders kind of pulling away from the floor a little bit and tailbones beginning to point upward. So the top of the pelvis is now pressing into the mat. And with this shape, holding this shape in the torso, press into the feet again, find your lift. So we're still lifting off the mat, but now the curve is in the opposite shape. The back body is wider and more broad than the front body, which is sort of collapsed on itself. Notice the distance again between the heart and the chin. 2 more breaths. On an exhale again, releasing back down. Seeing if you can hold that shape until your whole body is down, then relaxing, coming back into that passive shape. Let's take a brief supine twist to either side to remind ourselves of that swirling motion of the mind, the swirling motion of the world, and the stillness within. So your choice of what kind of supine twist you want to take. Maybe then the legs crossed, we do a twisted root, maybe legs are straight, maybe legs are bent. Find about 5 breaths in a supine twist on each side. See if you can find a complete passivity, feeling that spiraling motion of the mind represented by the spiraling spine, and the stillness and observation within, which is that highest calling of our consciousness, that stillness, that observation consciousness, the Sakshi witness. As the right number of breaths passes through and it's time to come out on an exhale, bringing yourself back to center. Take any neutralizing motions that you need, and then slowly and steadily with mindfulness, we'll emulate that swirl on the other side, letting the knees come over or whichever part of your body, however you're twisting. And again, see if you can become passive, just observing that swirling motion of the mind and of the world, even as the interior begins to, or remains in its steadiness and stillness, staying in that witnessing place, even as movement swirls all around you. When you come to the end of your breath cycles, no rushing, but if you are ready to come out, do so again on an exhale so that your core is engaged as you come back to center. Then notice any other movements that your body might be needing. Maybe we need to take a short inversion or a happy baby. Perhaps we need to roll along the spine. Finding some new way to cat-cow. Maybe we need to take a few moon bends to remember that opening of the side bodies. So take about a minute or two here to address any last movements. If you're ready to come into your resting pose and your body is already taken care of, feel free to also go ahead and find a resting shape. We do have sort of, again, our habitual patterns in all things. Our yoga practice is a samskara in some ways. We maybe meet at the same times every week or something like that. So it's also a repeated pattern. Imagine what the many seeds of your yoga practice has planted in your life. You're probably well aware of the benefits it brings both to your body and your mind and your spirit, your ability to remain in a peaceful place. Just kind of consider those seeds. And if we're aware of the fruits of the seeds of continuous yoga practice, maybe we can also bring awareness to other habitual patterns in our lives and start to recognize, bringing that awareness in to help us discern what is of service to oneness and wholeness and healing, and what is not of service to that state of yoga that we're aiming for. What practices bring us into that place where we're more alert and aware and intentional about our own thoughts, our own feelings, and our own behaviors? How can we also bring that same alertness and devotional level of attention to how the world is moving around us? And can we be so centered in our wholeness and our truthfulness and our essence of our being that we're able to observe both of those swirling motions and remain in our essence and our stillness? If you haven't already begun to find your way into your resting pose, begin to settle in. Find a deep level of stillness. Connect intentionally to that sakshi, that witnessing consciousness. It is only with this pure awareness that we begin to recognize and see our own patterns. What is meant by pure awareness? It means that knowing, that awareness is not colored by our individualistic ego, and it is also not colored by the movements of the world. That we are pure in our awareness, that we see with clarity and truthfulness. And when we reach that state of being, we're able to have that discernment about what seeds do we plant, what seeds do we cultivate, how often, how do we care for them, how do we grow them into manifestation so that we all find our wholeness. Let go of all doing. Release yourself fully to that state of pure awareness. From that place of pure awareness, from that stillness, that space we create to become more aware, to pay attention, from that place, just watch the pattern of your breath. Watch the pattern of your heart. And think about how many times in a day, or what percentage of your day, that you are aware of this heartbeat or aware of this pattern of breath. And remember also that our awareness or lack of awareness of our breath and our heartbeat do not affect the heartbeat from moving, the breath from moving. There are patterns in our lives that is just the way we live. It is our choice how intentional and how aware we would like to be of these patterns. from that place of stillness, see if you can retain that level of detailed awareness. And find a place in the body that you would like to begin and start to find just soft movements. Notice each action. See if you can hold your awareness of the heart and the breath even as your fingers or toes move. How much of your body can come out of that stillness while you retain that ability to be aware and intent. Test your boundaries, just letting your movements become less and less subtle, more and more active. See how long you're able to maintain that detailed awareness, that observation. And maybe you have a particular way of coming out of your rest pose that you prefer, and you want to engage with that seed in this moment. Perhaps you'd like to find a new and novel way to come out of your resting pose. In any case, however you find your path, find your way back to that alert and intentional upright seat, taking your time, arriving as you choose. Find that establishment in the low body. Find that open, clear channel through the center of the body. Open the heart, open that clear channel. Elevate the mind. Bringing the palms to touch in front of the heart center, we have both our internal awareness and our external awareness. We have the self and all others. And we unify those things through this symbol of joining the hands as one thing and then pulling that oneness into the heart center, acknowledging that our truth, our true identity, the very essence of our being is that oneness, that wholeness, and that connection to all. Allow the chin to drop down towards the chest, symbolizing that inward gaze, that constant vigilance, that our true essence is that of the witness. As we flow more, as we practice this Sakshi consciousness, this awareness, this observation with detachment, with clarity, our very consciousness begins to resemble that unchanging witness. So the more we practice, the more truth we can live in. The more truth we live in, the more of service toward oneness we are for ourselves and all other beings. And so we close our practice honoring all with this prayer. Lokha samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings be happy, healthy, safe, and free. Namaste.